As long as we are established in the consciousness of the external being and personality, the body-life-mind complex, aggregated around the ego personality, we interpret and decide things based on the external relationships each of those elements has developed in their dealing with the external world, as well as the subtle worlds that act as the source and power behind the mind, the vital, and the physical being. Naturally, this subjects the individual to potential deceptions, limitations of knowledge and experience, and outright manipulation or domination that originate at this level. In particular, the vital nature is particularly subject to suggestions that work to satisfy the desires for power, wealth, sex, or other desires, or that satisfy the ego's ambitions or vanity in some way. The vital nature also is able to gain the support of the mind to justify what the vital desires. Thus, it is impossible to rely on the external nature and the instruments of that nature to determine what is true and right. The psychic being is not beholden to the instruments of the external nature, nor the ego consciousness. It is connected to the divine consciousness and does not work to satisfy the ego and its desires or ambitions. Thus, it can see what is true without bias and utilize its influence over and eventually its mastery of the external nature, and thereby maintain its separate integrity and adherence to truth, regardless of the pressures or suggestions of forces of the vital or mental worlds, or even strict adherence to a status quo that is inherently limited in its scope and understanding. It is able to see through the devices and the manipulations, and thus is able to avoid the traps that the vital and mental elements of the nature tend to fall into. Sri Aurobindo writes, quote, "It seems to me that you must know by this time about the psychic being, that is, behind the veil and its consciousness also. Only a little comes out in the mind and vital and physical. When that consciousness is not concealed, when you are aware of your soul, the psychic being, when its feelings and consciousness are yours, then you have got the consciousness of the psychic being. The feelings and aspirations of the psychic being are all turned towards truth and right consciousness and the divine. It is the only part that cannot be touched by the hostile forces and their suggestions." End quote. Reference: Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, the Psychic Being, Soul, Its Nature, Mission, and Evolution, Section 4, The Psychic Being and Sadhana, page 111.